One of the very helpful things when we learn any skill, and that includes drawing, is at times to look back and think, have I improved? How have I improved? And most importantly, why have I, or perhaps haven't I, improved? And that's something I do regularly. And I was thinking, so what's changed in my last, say, 12 months of drawing? Because I'm drawing continuously and I do feel that I've improved. And by improved, I mean I'm able to do things that I don't think I was able to do 12 months ago, or I wasn't able to do them as well. And I've worked out the 6 reasons that came to mind most strongly that I think have had a really significant impact on how I draw. And in the background, here's me drawing a pine cone, a really interesting subject and has its challenges, but I think has some really positive things in the interest of its 3-dimensional form and its ability to challenge us with values and edges and surface textures. But enough of that for now. I do have a video on this. Why have my drawings improved? And I think the first reason is that I've focused more and more on a specific goal. And by that, I mean stylistically, overall. I have a stronger sense of how I want my finished drawings to look. I'm not just trying to copy, but I've got this sense of visualizing it in my head. And this is something I have begun to talk about in my videos, that the more comfortable and experienced I've become with different drawing techniques and the possibility of marks that I can get from a pen, the more I'm able to imagine how they might go together on the page in one drawing for the overall effect. It's very easy to get caught up in this little technique for this little bit and this little bit for this little bit. But in the end, it's the overall scene that has impact, that grabs attention in some way or doesn't. So it's trying to picture the overall drawing and how all the elements come together. And I do feel that I both make more effort to do that before I start to draw, but also that I'm able to do it better. And sometimes I can almost see it so clearly that I'm just copying the picture in my head. And while that's a bit of an exaggeration, there is an element of truth in that. So stylistically, I've become more settled on how I want my drawings to look, and I'm able to picture that in my mind before I start. And that, of course, guides me. The real challenge in drawing is not being able to draw the lines or the dots or whatever, but it's knowing when to and how to for a given effect. So that's the first one. The second one is that I've continued to have with my drawings a lot of short learning cycles that are very frequent. Now, that's because, thank you, I'm making YouTube videos, and so almost by necessity, the drawings can't be too long, they can't be too involved, because I don't want the videos to be too long or to have to be sped up too much, and so therefore I can't be drawing too long. Plus, there's usually a main focus that I want to have, and if the drawing is too complex and too much happening going on, then that focus is going to be diluted. So I have relatively quick drawings to do that, and by quick I mean 20 to 40 minutes, that I do frequently. And so that means that frequently I get to draw, experience my process, look at it and work out, has it worked or not? And then get ready for the next one. That learning cycle, that complete operation of, if you like, the skill I'm trying to learn in practice. And that's the unit that I learn within, and I can use then to improve. And so if I'm doing that learning cycle frequently, I will be learning frequently. If I do 3-hour drawings once a fortnight, I've only got one learning cycle now once a fortnight, so I won't learn as much. And because I'm trying to do too much, I may just get overwhelmed and not be able to focus on specific things clearly enough. The third thing is that I've continued to critique every drawing. I look at it and I think, what's worked? What hasn't worked? What looks good? What do I wish I'd done better? Added more ink, not added as much ink, Where have I been hasty with perhaps edges and so forth, and I've robbed myself early in the drawing of the possibility of creating the effect that later on I realized I wanted to create, and so forth. Critiquing is always so important. It's being our own teacher as well as our own student and marking the work. It's also the critiquing that guides me as to whether I can go on and do something harder or stay at this level. Or maybe I've actually advanced, in inverted commas, a little bit too quickly in what I'm trying to do, and I need to go back and just consolidate some more straightforward skills, or the same skills but with more straightforward subjects, because I really need to be succeeding at the challenges I'm setting myself before I move on to greater challenges. Otherwise, I can just consolidate bad drawing habits. I can get very used to doing things that don't actually produce a very good result. And then I get used to seeing my drawings like that, and I lose the ability to realize this isn't quite right. The fourth thing, and I think this is really significant for me personally, is that I've separated my drawing from the photo in my mind. Now, I've always said, we're not trying to copy the photo, we're trying to do a drawing, and the drawing is a springboard. But I think I've really taken this on board, and I'm really freed both from whatever the photo is saying, even though I've obviously chosen the photo because I like it and it's inspiring me to draw. I'm still not letting myself be bound. I'm giving myself complete freedom to make whatever changes will create a better drawing. And as part of that process, it's, I think, helped equip me to see the weaknesses in photos, to really appreciate the flatness of photos, that there is no sense of depth, everything is squished up together, and I have to visualize that depth back into it. I have to visualize the sense of, hey, this is really close, and this is a bit further away, and this is a bit further away, and this is way in the distance. And then with my marks, the way I draw my marks, and the sort of marks I put, I want to try and create that sense of distance that the photo has taken away. But it's also being aware of the differences between what I'm seeing and what I can do with a pen as well. So learning to use my observation and my understanding of the photo differently. If I'm trying to copy the photo, at best I'm going to have a pretty poor copy of the photo because I simply won't be able to copy the detail. And I need to learn to if I want a realistic looking drawing, I need to not add the detail that the camera captures, but which we don't tend to see in that way when we're looking in real life. Fifth point, I call this restrained advancing. Because I'm making videos, I don't want to rush and try things that are too hard too quickly because I need to keep my videos at a certain level. But that's meant that personally, I think I've been able to consolidate where I'm at in a really strong way. In a sense, it's forced me to take the advice I often give, that we shouldn't rush forwards too far, too fast. And so I really do, if you like, learn my lessons at each level before I push on to something a bit harder. And I'm also, by definition of the channel, I'm going back to simpler things often too. And I'm learning to apply perhaps a more sophisticated understanding with easier subjects, which I'm sure does actually help advance me as well. And finally, my understanding that drawing is really driven by our understanding of the drawing rather than by techniques of putting ink on the paper. That it's understanding the process which is key. And there's no one understanding, there's no one process, but if you've watched any of my videos, you'll know that I think of drawing as translating one visual language, the camera, the photographic visual language, into another, one that's spoken, if you like, not through ink and lenses and whatnot, and not through colored ink and printers, but that's spoken through a black multi-liner. My words, my grammar is what this pen can produce. And I need to say the same thing that the photo's saying, but in a different way with a different language. And I find that incredibly important, because this is what actually tells me what I'm doing. It's this understanding that guides everything else. It's this understanding that is the key to every problem that I have. When I can't draw something satisfactorily, that means I haven't worked out how to translate it from the photo into the black fine liner pen language that I've got. What am I going to do? How am I going to work that out? I need to experiment. I need to play around with marks. The thing I shouldn't do, and this isn't a point, but it's a really good one. The one thing I shouldn't do is waste any more time practicing doing what doesn't work. And I see so often with drawing students where I see a lot of their work, or if I look on Instagram, I see a lot of drawings with the same problems over and over and over again. And a lot of work and effort and lots of good things have been happening with these drawings. But the problem is that issues that could have been corrected haven't been, and therefore they've become entrenched. And practice on its own doesn't make perfect. It's informed practice that makes perfect. It's practice that we're taking on board, analysis of what we're doing, that we're, if necessary, having some input for other possibilities. If our marks aren't creating the result we want, if we want drawings with a sense of realism and we're not getting it, then we're using the wrong marks and we have the wrong understanding. I've talked a lot in recent videos about the difference between two-dimensional shapes and three-dimensional form. And this has been a really important understanding for me. It's really easy when we draw to focus on shapes, to focus on what we see in the photo that we could put a black line around and even cut out, because a photo is 2 dimensions. And it makes the object, even though we know in life it's 3-dimensional, it makes it look 2-dimensional in a way that this pine cone doesn't look in real life. We have a real sense of these elements thrusting outwards to us, and the ones at the sides going off but sitting further back, and even the ones that we can see through the middle going out on the other side. And I want to capture that 3-dimensionality. I want to capture that form in my drawing. I want it to look, if you like, more real than the photo. And I can't do that if I'm just outlining shapes. I may get accurate shapes at best, but I have the chance to put into my drawing what a camera cannot capture. I mustn't be overly impressed with the photo. I mustn't worship the photo. My drawing actually has the possibility of being better. And I need to, if you like, see that as my goal of capturing all the strengths of a photo, but to go beyond that with translating, or however we understand what we're doing, into something that's more engaging visually in some way. Because a drawing is a different visual language, and I'm not going to be able to say it the same way. But why not therefore take the opportunity to improve? G'day, I'm Travers. Look, I hope you've enjoyed this demo. This has always been a bit of a favorite drawing of mine. It was very challenging. I was very happy with the way it looked. This drawing, ironically, is a couple of years old. And I think I could do it better now if I gave it a go. And maybe I will, and compare the two. But if you'd like to have a go drawing this, I'll post the photo on my channel post page, and why not give it a go? And please hit that like button for me if you haven't already. Look, I hope these 6 ways that I think I've improved my drawing over the last 12 months have been helpful, and perhaps some of them at least could give you some direction for a focus if you feel like you've been stuck where you're at. So why not give it a go? But whatever you draw and however you draw it, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.